to pick one thing and do it really, 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 really well. Be an absolute expert in that one thing until you have made like maybe £1 million is what they sort of say. Just do one thing and do it amazingly and be known for doing that one thing. Should we do it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Welcome to The Backbone, a personal branding podcast for people that don't fit inside the box. Today, we are joined by Kelly and Jess from Accentuate SEO. Welcome, Kelly and Jess.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, both.
Cool. Thanks for joining us today. So you run Accentuate SEO. For anybody that doesn't know what SEO is and how it works, do you want to explain a little bit about that and also how you started the agency?
Yeah, so SEO is search engine optimization. Obviously, it sounds super geeky, but essentially it's helping you get found on Google because that's our bread and butter, really. We specialize in like Google Ads and SEO. So it's like two ways that people could find you. And what SEO is if someone types a keyword in, social media agency, Birmingham, we would want you guys at the top, obviously. And it's all the different things that people put in and ultimately getting your business found at the top. And there's loads of nuts and bolts. Is that the word I'm looking for? Bolts. Chop like that.
You want to say nooks and crannies then, won't you?
Yeah, and that's what is it crannies? Let me start that again. So there's loads of things with SEO that you have to do, but there's four main pillars, which is on-page SEO, which is looking at like your titles, your keywords. You've got off-page SEO, which is things off your page. Sounds really obvious. That impact your visibility. So things like Google Business Profile is a big one. Getting in directories is a big one. Getting articles online that really show, your stuff is a big one. You've got the technical stuff, which people hate, which is how fast your website loading. Have you got loads of like errors where you used to have pages, but you've deleted them and you need to do something with them now, which is doing a redirect. And then you've got content, which is massive. Like Google is all about helpful content. And ultimately, the website that it wants at the top are the ones that are super helpful and they answer people's queries really quickly. And that's like Google's dream, really. It's getting really good content. So those are the four areas. Hopefully that answers a little bit about SEO.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you guys get into it in the first place? Because it's such a niche thing to get into. Like, what made you want to dedicate your lives to SEO?
That's a really good question. So I started the business, it's got to be, I'm getting old now, 10 years ago. Because I always said I'd start my own business. And I'm going to go here with this story. I remember my first product design lesson when I was in year 7. And I made a Simba from the Lion King pencil case. And I was like, I'm going to do something that's like designy, something like that. So I started the business. It was mainly branding, actually, that we did. And over the years, I just ended up doing different things. So have you heard about WordPress? Got into coding a little bit. Oh, can you do an email marketing newsletter? Yes. Do you know about SEO? Do you know about Google Ads? And sort of the business evolved from there. But then we decided to niche down because we're just proper geeks. And we actually really love data. And one of the big things about what we did before was like branding and websites. But it was the thing after that was, well, how do people find them? How do people get to your ebook? How do people find your brochure? How do people find your website? And it was like those questions of like, actually, you could have this wonderful website, but if no one can find it, or if you've got this wonderful brochure, but again, no one's getting it, then it's not really doing something for you. So then we got really into that. And that's what we've niched down in since. Jess can help me here.
About 2 years ago, probably. Properly 2 years ago, we went down the SEO and the Google Ads route, and now they are the only two things that we sell ourselves on. Yeah, no longer the one agency that does everything like a typical marketing agency. Yeah.
Is it all data, or is there like a creative element to it as well, where you can put your own sort of personal spin on it?
I guess the creativity comes from kind of trying to find the ideas of how you're going to get people to click on what you're writing on a Google ad or what you're writing in a meta description on a page on a website,
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like sort of that's where the creativity comes in. I guess when we come to sort of more from the ad side of it, if we're building landing pages, sometimes we can unleash a little bit of creativity there, and we can go, we want to test doing some different colours that are perhaps out of your wheelhouse, just to see if it has an impact on the click-through rate or your conversion rate.
But with SEO, it is typically more data driven. I would say the creativity comes when we're creating content, if we write blogs for people or we write pages. But obviously that's always within a sort of a bit of a guideline from the customer of, this is my brand voice and these are the sort of things that I would say or not say, and you have to work within those guidelines then.
That's cool. Is it ever changing? Is it like an ever changing landscape, or is it sort of this is what works and this is what doesn't?
Oh no, it's just always changing. So like obviously Google's like released these AI overviews that you may have seen now that give you a quick summary at the top of like an answer. And like the race was on to get people found for like the AI overview, which is essentially like position 0 on Google. So that's been a massive thing that's like just rolled out in the UK. It was already in the US about a couple of months ago. So that's massive. And then the same with Google Ads. Jess can go into the Google Ads more than I can, but that's always changing as well.
Yeah, Google's got a massive, from an ads point of view, a massive push on the AI driven sort of strategies through Google Ads at the moment. They basically want to have all of your data and all of the power to do what they want with it and to spend your money for you. And then that's where sort of people like us can kind of step in and sort of be that buffer between, before you give Google all of that money and all of that control, let's put some parameters in place and let's train the Google Ads algorithm on what you actually want and what you don't want. And let's keep a control of it. But yeah, Google Ads has changed massively in just sort of the last 18 months alone, let alone sort of since it started as AdWords back in the day. You've got loads of new sort of campaigns that you can try. It's almost at the point now where there's kind of like one campaign which is called a Performance Max, which I love talking about to anyone that will listen to me. That kind of is kind of like 18 months ago it was terrible and everyone tested it and they were like, yeah, this is not good. This is not giving us any results. Whereas now the Performance Max ones actually outperform like your display, your shopping, sometimes your search campaigns as well. So it's really interesting just to see how it's evolved. But yeah, it's an ever-changing landscape and something that there's always something new to learn and to geek out on.
Go on, have you got something?
I was going to say, do you feel like you're constantly battling it all the time? Do you feel like you have to like constantly battle with Google, or do you feel like you're kind of like working together as like it's working quite well?
I mean, can you ever say that you work together with Google?
No, I guess
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they dictate it and then we all have to jump through the hoops to make sure we're hitting what they want.
But Google, if you're listening, we love you. As we're on this Google Meet.
Yeah,
yeah, the overlords are definitely watching right now.
But no, I wouldn't say for me it's a challenge. For me, I find it really interesting. I'm like, oh, Google's released a new feature. What does this do? And like, who will let me test this in their ads account? You know, like I find it really interesting, and I think it actually keeps what we do really interesting because it's not just the same old. You're not just deploying the same strategies and getting the same results. There's always something new to test and try outside of the realms of, you know, your typical A/B testing for pages and your keyword testing and all of that sort of stuff that applies to sort of both your SEO and your Google Ads. There's just always something new to learn and to try to sink your teeth into. And I think probably more so with the SEO side, there's never a right or a wrong answer typically. Or maybe it's that sometimes there's a wrong answer, but there's multiple right answers. And that can sometimes then kind of make it a little bit more tricky. And that's where you kind of then have to go, right, what are Google actually telling us they want to see on a website so that we can get this to the top? And then that's when you have to go through all of the Google updates that they release. And you might see sort of all over social media, people are like, oh, Google's like updates have been leaked and here are all the data sets and the paperwork to go with it. And it's then, yeah, people like us trawling through that to go, right, okay, actually, if we try this, it might work.
And do you know what? One of the big things with SEO is like, don't panic, because sometimes like Google will release an update. Everyone goes wild and loses their mind trying to do loads of stuff on the website. And actually that can have the opposite effect. And Google's core principles always remain the same, which is this big thing about helpful content, making sure that people are finding the answers they want. And as long as you're doing that and doing that well, that's like such a big thing. It's not just about like, people could put loads of content on the website, but if it's not helpful, it doesn't give any insights to like your personal experience from knowing what you do. You know, that content isn't great. You know, I'm sure we'll touch on AI, but I think AI has a place in the SEO world, but when it's used well, Like if it's just being used to drive out content that then isn't getting edited, there's no personal insights, there's like, you know, no tone of voice in it. Is that really helpful? And is that really helping your audience? Because ultimately, all you're doing on your website is you're talking to the people you want to work with. Hello, dream client. The information you give them is what you want them to know with you. Is that great or not? And I think there's some real core principles in SEO that can sometimes be forgotten when these updates come into play, and people can panic and just go, wow.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about AI. If you'd seen a difference in the industry since AI had started to improve, and if you hadn't seen a big difference yet, what you saw on the horizon with it all?
Well, obviously there's loads of talk in the SEO world about how you can search through ChatGPT and how that's going to change things. But ultimately, ChatGPT is crawling websites. It's obviously not up to date at the moment either. But at the core of it, it's still your knowledge and understanding. And I think there's a big thing around like its use in terms of like duplicate content, which is back to this thing of like, are you putting your own insights into it? Or can anybody just write that same thing and have it across the internet? And I think it'll come to a crunch where actually people will suffer that have just gone wild and just not put their personal stance on things. But it's really useful for like keyword research. It can help with things like meta descriptions and stuff, but it's like anything with AI, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. That's never the end. It's never the end product by like a long way. And sometimes actually it can be more work than if you'd have just done it yourself, in my opinion. It's sort of where I get to sometimes. But yeah, it's got a place for some things, but not for everything.
Yeah, I've started to notice at the top of Google now when you search, there's an AI suggestion, isn't there, as before you even get to the Google search?
Yeah.
I don't know whether that is going to be potentially the future of search engines.
Yeah, definitely. So this is this AI overview thing. And basically what was happening is Google just wanted someone to answer a question like immediately. So if you asked a question, the advice in the SEO world was that you had a page that literally answered that question in the first line as concisely as possible. And what we were doing behind the scenes as an SEO agency, we was trying to get these questions answered for the questions our clients would want. And then there's a thing called indexing in Google Search Console where you can basically ask Google to re-index that page. I've done something to it. Please, can you take a look at it? And you put in a request. And what was happening with that is that Google was like indexing it really quickly. And some people were finding that they were getting the number one position on the AI overview literally in a day. So everyone went mental on that about a month ago.
Right.
And it was the thing to do.
So you could game it almost.
Yeah, exactly. That position 0 right at the top. It's a bit like, you have the people also ask questions when you put a search term in, they're like, you scroll that halfway down the page. So there's a big race on those as well. It's trying to steal them from other people. And then there's little tricks you can do with, is it a paragraph of text? Is it a title? Which paragraph is it? How have they formatted it? Let me try and steal it. And there's like a big game that we have a laugh about internally about that, because it's literally called featured snippet theft. So there might be someone doing some theft today to try and get one.
Yeah. So what would you class as like unethical SEO then? Because you sometimes see like you type in like a big brand or something like that, and you'll get all the competitors' websites coming up first. And you'll always get like someone trying to be a little bit sneaky. So like, is there unethical SEO, or is it it's just a fair game for anyone who wants to have a go?
There's unethical SEO, which I don't see as much of anymore, but it's like getting loads, when you could buy like loads of backlinks and they were all from the dodgiest places on the earth, from some really dodgy websites. And I think back in the day, it was all about like quantity over quality. And it's absolutely not about that anymore. It's actually more about like digital PR and getting links from websites that are relevant to you, where your dream clients might see it, that can then help you. So I think unethical SEO is always where things aren't done without thought, I think is what my summary would be. It's same again back with content, writing content that's not relevant, getting backlinks that aren't relevant. But in terms of trying to get to the top, it's definitely fair game. Like you can have a look at all the links that your competitors got to their website and then get them for yourself, or get better ones. So like every website's got like a domain rating, which is out of 100. And like you have like educational websites or government websites, their domain ranking is obviously amazing. So if you can get links from places like that, that's really good. If you can't, then people end up getting links from like websites that don't have such a domain rating, like a lower one, and then you have to get more of them. But if you can get real great links and put a lot of effort into that, you can then beat your competitors. It's just an ongoing game, and sometimes it is the case that you do an SEO just to stand still sometimes. But there's definitely like quick wins with like keywords that are less competitive. So like with SEO software, you can see if like the keyword is less competitive, but it still has a really good search volume. So then you can really go after things that aren't like, you know, the top most competitive keyword you could go for, and you can see some wins, you know, from keywords that are similar.
Or if you've got a budget, you just put it on ads and then you can get to the top of that keyword.
Simple. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. And you can do that. You can do competitors as well. So you can put your competitors' names and you can bid on their names to be at the top. It's always going to be more expensive for you because that's not your brand name, but you can do it.
So there's a whole war going on behind the scenes of search engines then that I was completely unaware of.
Yep.
It's really
yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always say like you've got Google Ads where you can pay to be at the top, and then you've got SEO, which is a long-term game. Like it just is. It's going to take time to come up to here. If you can do both, fantastic. Because if you can get your SEO to a point where like you could say, actually, I'm going to turn my ads off for this month and I'm not going to drop off the air, and that's brilliant. But there's definitely really sneaky, clever tactics from a Google Ads point of view. So like the brands campaign is a big one that we just do as standard for people now. Jess, I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit more.
Yeah. So for all of our clients, we tend to set up a brand campaign, which is your brand name, so that you're bidding on your brand name on Google. So if people Google your company, you come up at the top. And ideally, you'd come up at the top from a Google Ads point of view and from an organic point of view. So you're taking up at least the top 2 to 3 spaces on Google, and your competitors aren't, like, you know, outdoing you. The reason we do that is so that if someone does set up a competitor campaign on your brand name, that it's always cheaper for you because it's your brand name, and you're like, you know, you're always going to sort of have all the signals from Google, like, this is my brand name, it's in my URLs, it's all over my website. You know, you're sending Google the signals that basically this is me and I've got a better sort of authority on that keyword. Whereas your competitors won't have that. So they'll have to pay a lot more to get that click and to beat you in that sort of, it's an auction basically from Google. So every time everyone searches for something in Google, if there's Google Ads being run against that search term or related term, there's like a mini auction that happens behind the scenes for who's going to appear in the number 1, 2, 3 and whatever spots from a Google Ads point of view. So yeah, that's why we always set up the brand campaign, just so that you beat your competitors if they do target you from a Google Ads point of view.
So if you set up a business and you don't play this game, you just disappear down the search engine?
Potentially, yeah, especially if you're not really sort of focusing on SEO, or you're not sort of optimizing your website for keywords, and you're not updating your meta descriptions and your page titles and all of that sort of stuff. There has to be, I think if you've got a website, there has to be a level of a strategy behind why you're setting up a website, because otherwise it will just sit there and no one will really find it, or no one will find it organically. People you direct to it in person, obviously if you're handing out business cards or you're talking to people and go, yeah, go and look at my website, that's the only way that people would see it.
I understand.
See the cogs in your brain.
Yeah, no, it's a school day for me.
Like, okay, we need to do this. We need to do this. Yeah. No, it is like wild how much we are reliant on this completely invisible force that is the internet to be able to get seen. It is crazy. So say I was a small, I suppose I am a small business owner. Say I'm a small business owner and I want to start doing SEO. Like, what's the first step? How do you start?
The first step is understanding your goal behind doing SEO and whether SEO is actually the right strategy in the first instance. Because if you were like, I want leads, you know, now, soon, as soon as possible, then I'll be like, okay, is SEO really going to be the best route here? Or is Google Ads going to be? Because like, if you're not ranking on Google for SEO at all, which can happen with like brand new websites, it's just a natural thing where you don't have much content, you don't have many pages. It'd be like, you can invest in SEO, which I always recommend if you've got the budget. But if you do Google Ads, if you get leads, that can then fund your SEO. And then while you're up here for your ads, you can then be chipping away and getting found. that way. But I guess in terms of your question, in terms of getting started, it's always like keyword research, which is the same across both. From an SEO point of view, it's like, is there like a topic that you could absolutely dominate? So in the world of like social media, you've obviously got personal branding, which is massive for you. But then within personal branding, there might be other topics that are massive in their own right that could be like, we want to be known for this particular topic. And we're going to go all guns blazing and write all the content we can and absolutely own the space. So what we do is like put a strategy behind that, look at all the keywords that could be, plan out all the different articles that then relate to the keywords that are like low competition but high search volume, make the plan from there and off you go. As simple as that.
I love that. And I always think as well, like, I get it with my clients, and I bet you probably get it with your clients as well, that people overthink it so much that they think that the keywords are going to be these really like what's like jargony words that they use in their industry. And actually a lot of the time you just need to put in what you would naturally type in yourself, and people forget like it's humans typing these things in, and you do just need to think how a human would type in for now how they would find you. So I guess there's probably quite a lot around that as well, and just sort of being quite creative with thinking, how would people want to find me? What are they going to be questioning to find me?
I often find that with Google Ads, actually. I'll start with like a set of maybe 10 to 15 words on sort of like a smaller account. They will not be the 10 to 15 words that I end up with in 6 months' time. They will be completely different, but you've got to sort of just almost draw a line in the sand and start somewhere. And you've got to go, are these going to get me the results that I want? And sometimes Google Ads can work really well hand in hand with SEO, because if I find a winning keyword on Google Ads, I usually then pass that over to the SEO guys and I'm like, right, this keyword is working amazingly on ads for this business. And if we're doing the SEO, let's get some content behind that. Let's create like a little strategy around sort of getting this keyword on their website because it's really working. And there's obviously demand for it if it's converting from a Google Ads point of view as well.
Google has obviously won the search engine war, if you like. Do you even bother with other search engines anymore? Or is it just Google?
We specialise in Google, to be honest. That's kind of, it's the biggest search engine. That's where, most of the searches go these days. For now anyway, we'll sort of, watch this space. At one point it was like TikTok was threatening to take over, weren't it? But I think that's kind of slowly sort of dropping off a little bit now with all of the issues with TikTok. But be interesting to see if any of the AI search engines come to fruition, and that does sort of give Google a bit of a competitor, and then I guess we'll have to reevaluate our business strategy. But for now, we specialise just in Google.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, for the longest time there was a ton, wasn't there? Someone had used AOL, someone else had used Yahoo, Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves.
It's just all dinosaur stuff now. None of them exist anymore. But like you say, it'll be interesting to see what comes with AI. Apparently, younger people, not that I know many, but use ChatGPT and other things now as a search engine rather than Google. That will be interesting. First time in maybe a decade or so that Google will have any competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think the only issue that I see with the sort of likes, especially of ChatGPT, is it's not live. It's not looking at what's current. So it's kind of, is it a couple of years out of date at the moment, I think?
At least one, isn't it? It's always at least a year behind, isn't it?
Yeah. So, if there's something kind of trending that's happening now, it's not going to know that. Like it probably doesn't know the result of the recent election in the US, for example.
Right. That'll be
pretty well.
That'll be the next big update, I suppose. Make it live.
But there's some different search engines, AI search engines specifically, and some of them are more up to date than others. So there's like Perplexity, which is one. There's one called Poe, and you can use different ones to do different searches and stuff. So it's definitely worth lots of research. We're always digging into these different things just to see what each of them do and things like that. But
cool. All right, I want to talk a little bit about you two as business owners and Accentuate. And you ended up working together, because obviously Kelly, like, you started the business initially, and Jess, you kind of joined a little bit later on. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah, so I begged Jess to join the business. It took her probably a year. But basically when COVID hit, which was a terrible time for a lot of businesses, we got really busy. I think it was that like pause of what do we need to like pivot on? Like, what do we need to do now? Do we need to like get online? Because that's where everybody is. So like, we actually got a busy as a result. I'd already asked Jess to join. So Jess's background, I'll let her go into, but it was still very geeky and data driven. So like, it was like a natural thing for me to ask her. She loved her job though, which I think is the one big thing to say. So Jess, I'm going to hand to you at that point.
Yeah, you've been asking me for quite some time to join you in the business, and I think running a business or sort of being a part of a business that, you know, I could kind of guide, I guess is probably the word, is something that I've always wanted to do. And obviously then COVID hit and we all sort of started working from home, and I was like, actually, it's not that bad working from home and not being in an office every day. I actually quite enjoy it. And then Cal was obviously getting really busy and getting a little bit stressed. And I was like, okay then. So it took a little while for that kind of thought to settle in. I then went part-time at my job and joined Kelly part-time. So I sort of eased myself out of my job because I did really enjoy what I did. I was in sort of supply chain and sort of purchasing. That's kind of like my background. But it got really geeky to the point that I was like pulling reports left, right, and centre and making sense of the data for sort of the wider business. So yeah, then I joined Cal part time, and I was like, these are two very full on jobs in their own right, so I can't do both. It's too much headspace. So then I sort of was like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I've got to do it and jump with 2 feet. So I did. I joined Kelly, and I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm probably not going to do it. I'll sort of stay in the corporate world and sort of stay here forever, sort of thing. So yeah, then I joined Cal. I weren't really sure sort of 100% what I was doing when I joined Cal, because obviously digital marketing was not my background, but looking at data and kind of working out trends and sort of working out what the data was telling us was one of the things that I enjoyed doing. And then I think was that the summer that we converted our shed into an office. So we had a big shed in the garden. We were like, right, we need to get out of the house because we didn't have room in the house for 2 desk setups. So we were like, right, let's work out what we're going to do here. So we converted the big shed in the garden into an office, made it all nice and fancy, insulated, heating, lights, and all of the electricity and everything. That was a good project. And then then we just started working in there basically. We had like one big desk at one time, didn't we? Sort of like we had a big breakfast bar basically at the one side of the shed. I suppose really we should call it the office because it wasn't the shed typically.
I always called it the shed.
Yeah, she always called it the shed. But we were too like distracted by each other, sort of sitting next to each other. So like I'd be like, oh, what are you working on today? And she'd be like, what are you working on today? Or oh, what's that for? So then we decided to build a wall.
Okay.
So we cut the breakfast bar in half and we built a wall in between us so that we couldn't see each other. We could talk around the wall. But yeah, we had to put a divide in, yeah. Our business coach loves that we did this. And I think the people at B&Q also loved that we did this because we went to B&Q, we're like, oh, we're just building a wall in our office, you know, as you do. We need all these bits of wood cut into all these sizes. And then we tried to get them in the car and they were all stood at the front of B&Q watching us try to get it in the car. And it was like too big by about this much to go in the boot, which was really frustrating. So I had to go back in B&Q and be like, I need you to cut these a little bit smaller so they can go in the car. And they're like, okay then. So yeah, we went and built our wall, and that really helped our productivity actually, just to have that sort of visual divide because we weren't as distracting to each other. And then I guess it gets a little bit more extreme because then eventually we've moved house and we've now got separate rooms because we just were on calls at the same time calls on the same time, but 2 different people.
Yeah.
So then obviously then it became like a bit of a battle as to who was going to talk the loudest in the room, and it got louder and louder in the room. So yeah, now we're in separate rooms.
Is that where you are now, in your separate rooms?
Yeah.
Cool. Because like obviously we've just started working together. So I was going to ask for some advice on how to work and run a business with your partner. But if the advice is just build a wall.
That's it, isn't it? Build a big wall between them.
It's easy enough to do, isn't it? Or sit in a separate room, you know.
Could I just get horse blinkers? Would that work as well?
It might do. Give it a go, you know. You never know.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to talk around the wall.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't allowed.
There
were rules.
Like an old cartoon, isn't it? This side of the house is mine and that side of the house is mine.
Yeah. I think something else that's like maybe a little bit more practical advice rather than going to B&Q and building walls of MDF. We've got very defined roles within the business and they're very different. So it's not very often that we cross over, or where we cross over, it's stuff that we would naturally collaborate on anyway. So for me, I kind of look after the Google Ads side of the business and Kelly really takes the SEO side of the business and heads that up. I then kind of look after some of the internal stuff for the business. So I get all the really exciting stuff like business insurance and bookkeeping and finance stuff. And then Kel sort of picks up the sales because that's naturally sort of more sort of her line of what she likes to do. I'm not sure anyone really likes doing sales, but that's where her skills lie, let's say that way. So yeah, we've got very sort of specific roles which help us to kind of not tread on each other's toes, or not to be like, well, who's actually picking this up? It's very clear. It's like, well, that's a finance task, so that's for you, or this is an SEO task, or this is a sales task, so that comes to you. And that really works well for us. And then we have our own management meeting, don't we, in the week now that we've got a team of people. So we have Wednesdays is our on the business day. So we'll have a management meeting in the morning, usually at the kitchen table, with a cup of tea or maybe some breakfast. And we'll sort of just talk about what's going on in the business and like what we're sort of working out and what we're finding. And then we'll work on, we usually collaborate at that point and work for the day together on something to help the business grow, which at the minute is sales systems, which is quite interesting actually.
I think that's been one of the important things that we've done actually, is having that management meeting, because that's like a new thing. But you know, you don't want to be finishing work and talking about work. And that I'm a bit of a nightmare that I will think about work outside of work hours, because as a business owner, I'm sure is that everyone? I don't hope it's what everyone does, but I think it's really hard. And sometimes I have these things in my mind and I'm like, no, we're going to talk about it in the management meeting. And we've got like a real set time when that's done. And we've done similar things with the team as well. Like they all have their roles and responsibilities. And then we have like sessions for like help required. So if they need help, they know they've got a drop-in session that they can join me at any time and talk about whatever they want. And I think those are like real big things for us that we've put in place that have like not only helped us to manage, you know, that we're work and life thing together, that's weird, but also managing the team as well.
Yeah, so almost like treating it as you would a more structured 9-to-5 job, isn't it? With your specific roles and specific times and everything. And do you think that's pushed the business to the next level, sort of that a bit more structure in that sense, rather than just freewheeling?
Absolutely. I mean, how long have we worked with Andy? We've worked with Andy you worked with him before I joined the business, which was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So our business coach is very much like, I should be able to come and do your job next week. And in your calendar, I should know exactly what I should be doing. Whether I know how to do it is different, but I should know what I should be doing. So if I should be working on client work, I need to know that that's what I should be doing on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. If I should then be working on sales at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, I should know that I'm working on sales at Thursday at 2 o'clock. And it's very kind of like structured in that sense. So that's really helped. We've actually implemented it now after kind of years and years of him going, you should really implement this and really sort of try properly to do it. We've actually done it and it works. Yeah. It does sound so simple, but it's really difficult to refine, and you're constantly changing it as well, which then makes it like a bit of a moving target all of the while, or something will happen in your week and it completely derails your plan. But then you have to sort of just work out, right, okay, I know what I'm sacrificing to do this instead, or I know what I'm pushing out because this is more important. And then it kind of just helps you to work out what the gaps are of like, I need support in these areas, or actually this is stuff that isn't urgent, you know. I don't think what we do, no one dies doing what we do. So that's always a bonus. And that's kind of one of my favourite things to say is no one's going to die. It's okay if we need to push something out. It's, you know, it's not life or death. But yeah, I think having a plan, definitely, even just for our sort of day to day, has made such a difference to the business.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I've struggled with leaving corporate life, is going from such a structured weekly working week to just trying to figure out what it is that needs to be done next. You almost feel institutionalized, don't you, when you leave that sort of setting? You're like, just someone tell me what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that was where when I sort of left the corporate world and joined Kelly, I then got myself on this Google Ads course. And like, as well as changing what we do as a business and helping us to really focus, I was like, this is my thing. This is what I love and this is what I'm really good at. And I really enjoyed it. And then I was able to build my structure around that, if you like. And I sort of managed to find my role in the business. Because I think that was what I struggled with at first. I was like, this is Kelly's business and I need to find how I come into this and what my responsibility is. And even though she was like, oh, well, I want you to look after all these things, it was still very much like, oh, Kel, are you okay with me doing that? Or is that okay? Like, you know, running everything by her. Whereas I think being on the NatWest Accelerator and kind of having those definition of our roles has really sort of helped us to kind of, for me, I suppose, to feel that it is my business too.
Yeah.
And the fact that we got married halfway through, you know.
Yeah.
The natural progression of starting a business together, and
yeah,
I mean we're on that trajectory at this point, aren't we?
I think yeah, definitely. But like with that in mind, like obviously, like you are a married couple, you are running a business together, you do absolutely everything together, you've got a lot of the same friends. Like, how do you do it? How do you get it all together? Is there times where you ever feel a bit overwhelmed by it and you're just like, oh, I wish I was doing something else? Or has it just kind of like been the natural progression of things and it's actually all worked out amazingly?
I think a bit of both.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, we're both Francis. Yeah, I think running a business is actually really hard. Like, you have your great times, you have your not so great times, you have the times where you're absolutely loving it, you have your times where you're not loving it so much. And I think that can be difficult, but I think it's getting clear on what it is that you want from it. You know, I think we can all be like, oh, let's go and get a job because we might get paid more. And, you know, it's really thinking about why you do what you do. Why are you running a business? Because actually it is challenging. And thinking about what that end goal is and being really clear on it, I think, is what pushes you through the good and the bad times. But we do have a cut-off that we do try not to talk about where I'm trying to find better hobbies. Because I really struggle because I'm not great at telly because I get bored. I'm not very good at gaming, which Jess loves. So yeah, but it's like finding hobbies that aren't sitting at my computer is the goal at the moment.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I think I get very restless on the weekends and have to go out on little missions and challenges with my daughters and like leave you here.
Well, I've got hobbies coming out my ears, haven't I? So
yeah.
It's very much a similar dynamic.
Yeah, it's a very similar dynamic. Yeah.
Sam, what are we doing?
That's it.
It needs to not work.
That's it.
You find yourself permanently turning the computer back on, don't you? No matter what time of day it is. And
Kelly's
yeah. I think you're very good at sort of having your separate times for separate things, and you're like, right, I'm going to go and have a run now. I'm going to go and do my activities now. I'm going to go and do my whatever. But I think you've learned to just let me go back to the computer on a Saturday afternoon and just sit there and start working rather than argue it, haven't you?
Yeah, the Saturday afternoon's the least of my worries.
So what concerned me the most with Kelly the other night is we'd worked all day and I was like mentally and physically just done for the day. I was like, I cannot physically look at a computer screen anymore. And Kelly sort of sat there on the sofa. She's like, I'm just going to go and get my computer. I just want to check something. And that's always it. So I'm just checking something. And she's tapping away. And we're watching TV. And then she's like, oh, isn't there another episode we can watch? And bearing in mind, it's like already 12:30 at night. And she's like, is there not another episode we can watch? And I'm like, you can if you want. I'm going to bed. I'm done. Like, it's late. This is later than we normally stay up. And she was like there willing to stay working, but she was like so engrossed in what she was doing. And I was like, no, this is not okay. You need to draw a line.
Yeah, you know, when you're really into something. It doesn't happen that often, actually, because I'm actually usually the opposite. I'm usually like, it's 9 o'clock, it's time for bed, and just like, it's way too early. But I'm usually that. But you know, when you're just into something and you're like getting through something that sometimes like you can find a bit in the day where you just struggle to do it. I found my peak, and yeah, it was 12:30, but I was on form. But no, I don't recommend it. No one do that. Don't do it.
Sometimes you need to complete something, don't you, before your brain can turn off.
Yeah,
you've started it,
and it was for us, so it's for our sales system stuff. So that was also my other excuse. Like, I think,
yeah. I think there is a key there, though, isn't there, between finding a yin and a yang in a working relationship or in a general relationship where you both have your strengths and you work off each other's weaknesses and strengths to complement each other. Not that I'm an expert on any of these things, but this is what I'm picking up. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are, but you have to find ways, don't you? You just have to find what works for you.
Yeah, of course.
But for us, it's having that definition of and the structure and just having that cut off. Yeah, I think usually when we have dinner, that's sort of the cut off point at whatever time we have dinner. Sometimes we'll work till 7 o'clock at night and, it's really late. And then we're like, oh, let's have dinner. Otherwise it's going to be 10 o'clock and we haven't even had dinner. But usually that's when we have the cut off and it's like, right, the work time's over. Unless Kelly sort of then goes, actually, no, there's something that I need to just sit on the sofa and finish or that I want to finish. But yeah, she's a lot better now and she doesn't usually ask me questions when I'm sat there in my pajamas trying to chill and wind down.
I've learned that.
You're pushing.
Don't ask questions. No. Write them down.
You're pushing for midnight dinner, Kelly.
Yeah. It's like a second dinner at this point. But yeah, it's usually on a weekend, to be fair. Although I am trying to get better at that. It's usually a weekend where I'll just keep going. Whereas I don't generally in the week.
God forbid if you and Sam ever set up a business then.
We'd never see them.
We'd look like we'd never slept and we probably would not have slept.
There's a few empty bags of crisps around the desk and that'll be dinner for like the next 3 nights.
Call the business burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, all right. We've kept you for long enough now. So with one last question in mind for you guys. It's a question we've been asking everybody. What's one piece of advice you wish you'd had at the start of your career?
I think from starting a business point of view, it would be to pick one thing and do it really, 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 really well. Be an absolute expert in that one thing until you have made like maybe £1 million is what they sort of say. Just do one thing and do it amazingly and be known for doing that one thing. I think if I was to start a business again, that's what I would do differently.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was going to say. Like a big thing for us is at the moment is that we're niching even further in. So it's like we want to work with sustainable businesses. We're going after our B Corp. We really want to work with people that will care about the world and making it like a better place. And like a big thing for us is that, we believe marketing is more than just driving sales. It can make a difference to people. So whether that's companies that reinvest in their staff and they make sure they're the happiest they can be, or they've got a product that's going to like change the world for the better. And that's like our one thing. So if we were to go back in time, it would be really, really honing in on that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. And like, again, like you don't know these things when you're starting out and it does sort of uncover itself over time. And actually like the deeper you into the hole you go, you realize like, oh, actually I am an expert in this. And like, no, that's really cool. I love that.
It's okay to say no to the things that you don't want to do. Even if you sort of see the little money bags floating, it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing all this wisdom. If people want to find out more about you guys and Accentuate, where can they find you?
They can go to our website, so www.accentuate.agency. That's the main place to go. We've got an ebook coming out on there, so free advice for Google Ads. The common mistakes to avoid, so that's something to look out for as well.
And that'll be right at the top of the search engine.
Hopefully. Working on it.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. I really
appreciate
it.
Thanks for having us.